right. So today on Maritime, the program, we're looking at U.S.-Iran war on, of course, we're looking at the global ripple effects on supply chains and logistics. So let me bring in my guest who is an expert in this area. Dr. Obiora Madu is an export consultant. He is also the Director General, African Center for Supply Chain. Dr. Obiora Madu, good morning. It's nice to have you join us.
Good morning, Victor. My pleasure to be here.
All right, then you're welcome. It's the first time we're speaking this year, by the way. So even though it's a bit late, this is the second quarter. But you're welcome.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, then. So let's talk about the war now, because as we speak, today makes it 36 days. That means 5 weeks gone as it relates to this war. What started out as just droplets. People were thinking this is a war that will be ended within a short while, but it seems not to be abating, so to say. So how is the war affecting global supply chains, Dr. Obiora Madu?
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Victor. Nobody decides when a war will end, because you'll never be in a position to determine the capacity of people on both sides of it. But let's come to supply chain. I think what I would like us to do, first of all, is to build a background around it.
Okay.
So that there are people who are not supply chain people who are listening, so that they can understand what we're talking about.
Right.
Now, the issue, supply chain is responsible for manufacturing, agriculture, everything that is productive. Supply chain is what makes it happen. So if we're looking at the global supply chain, it is global supply chain that makes it possible for a manufacturing company to bring in raw material from somewhere to utilize.
Right.
It's also what makes it possible for an exporter to be able to export goods. So generally, almost between 80 and 90% of the goods that move around globally move by sea.
Okay.
And if you look at the impact of this very particular, it is the maritime sector that is hit very, very badly.
Right.
So that's the background. So if we're talking about disruption, so what we're looking at now is how does this war affect the ability of this cargo to move around the world from the surplus area to the areas of deficiency. So that is the background
that you have been able to lay. And
now,
I want to thank you for that, for laying that background. But as this, so far so good, 36 days gone, this supply chain that we're talking about, is it being affected or is it being disrupted?
Okay, Victor, when it started, it looked like a global, it looks like a regional conflict. So everybody, where it doesn't concern us, it doesn't concern us. But right now, it's a global logistic disruptor.
Okay.
And the ripple effect is shaping production and activities across the globe.
Right.
So if we're looking at the major global effects of this very particular issue, because I say it is a disruption. If it's a disruption, we want to look at what has been disrupted. The first one is the maritime routes.
Okay.
We all know about Red Sea. Red Sea is Suez Canal is not directly affected, but Suez Canal is also on the route to the Strait of Hormuz, which is a major place. So the Strait of Hormuz is responsible for between 20 and 30% of the global oil. So it means that, and that has been a place of contention between the warring parties.
That's right.
So first one is that the maritime routes have been affected. People's goods have been stuck. Insurance has gone up. Some owners of vessels are putting their vessels down and refusing to let it go anywhere. So people are diverting vessels and with high very cost consequences.
Right.
So disruption of the critical maritime routes is the very first thing. And of course, what that does is that it delays movement of cargo to different parts of the world.
Okay, just hold on one
shipping
second.
Cost.
Just hold on one second before you talk about the shipping costs. Now, for those who might not really understand what we are really making reference to, the Strait of Hormuz is a very, very narrow part which most ship, which they navigate through. And like you heard from Dr. Obiora, it takes about 20 to 30% of world trade. So shipment goes through that area. So in a day, I understand about 120 ships navigate through these routes. But since Iran decided to block that access, the best we've had is just about 5 ships. That's within the past 2-3 days. I understand they've allowed a Filipino ship to navigate through, 2 Chinese ships about 2-3 days back. And I think for the first time yesterday, a French ship was also allowed to navigate through. So in the past 5 to 6 days, only 5 to 6 ships have been able to successfully pass through that route based on negotiation with the Iranian government. So that tells you the critical nature of that particular strait. Now, Dr. Obiora, you were talking about shipping costs, right?
Yes, even before we talk about shipping costs, what you have just described tells a story. If 20 to 30% of the world oil cargo move through this route,
right,
and 100 and something ships per day,
right,
and then in the last how many days you have only 5 ships move, it tells you clearly that the world energy is in trouble.
It's affected.
So it's negatively affected. So talking about the cost and insurance premium, you know what happened was that initially the insurance cost just went up immediately the war started. But at some point, the insurance club had to withdraw their services completely. And when a ship is not insured, nobody wants to venture in any area that is of high risk.
Right.
And that Strait of Hormuz is so important. That's exactly why, in fact, there was a counter instruction from America that if they do not open that place, that there are consequences. That is because everybody understands the risk. So insurance prices, shipping costs went up. So the implication of that on the common man is that all these cost, insurance, shipping, and the rest of them that have increased will ultimately increase the price of products when they arrive to where they are going.
Okay.
Now, there's also manufacturing delays across continents. I mean, it affects Africa, it affects Nigeria, it affects everywhere. But the fact is that I have ordered for a raw material.
Okay.
It may not be passing through the Strait of Hormuz, but ships. In fact, people are even being careful now to take trips by air. So as a result of that, you have delays of goods moving across continents, raw materials, components, parts, inventories, and the rest of them. So it causes delay inputs.
Okay. All right. Just
People
hold on.
have to schedule cycles.
Yeah, just hold on 1 second because we have a live report coming in from our live motorbike reporter, Raphael.
Hello, Victor.
Yes, Raphael, go ahead.
Yeah, just to quick update you that the normality has been restored because everything has been taken off the road. So we have the normality of the road being now restored.
Oh, very good.
Update for now.
All right.
Very soon, everything will be returned to normality, though.
Okay, then. All right, Raphael Jeremy, thank you so much. That's our live motorbike reporter. It says recovery completed and all routes now open for vehicular movement while we have the backlog which is being flushed right now. So those of you coming in from Maryland inwards or Jota should be having it better as a result of the total evacuation of that impediment. All right, so Dr. Obiora, yes. So you were talking about the cost that has been associated with this war.
The costs arising from the manufacturing delays.
Yes.
Higher operating costs, loss of sales due to late delivery. So it's a whole lot. Then if you look at then you come to logistics congestion and port pressures. Because of diversion of vessels, because vessels that are scared of passing through the Suez Canal, which is a shorter route to West Africa, will go down the Cape of Good Hope.
Okay.
Pass through Durban and the rest of them before they come up to West Africa. There is a high cost implication of that diversion.
Now, is that a longer route?
And then it's a longer route. It's much longer route. So as a result of that, African ports are beginning to have congestion because certain goods that are supposed to go to other areas are probably at the moment dropped in ports that are closer to that area.
Right.
So ports like the port of Lomé, which is like the logistics hub of West Africa,
All right.
has a lot of containers, and the place is choked now. And of course, it's causing delays to get things out of the thing. Anybody who is also doing global business now knows that geopolitical risk is very, very high and uncertain terms. So what that means is that companies have to keep their eyes very, very close. If you don't have a risk department, you may just have to set up one now. So that 24/7 somebody is watching in those directions and be able to mitigate whatever risk that the company could meet.
All right. Lagos Traffic Radio 96.1 FM. We're looking at the global ripple effects of the US-Iran war on global supply chain and logistics. And we have a supply chain expert who's joining us, Dr. Obiora Madu. There's a message here. It says, good morning, happy Easter celebrations. Say, please, Dr. Madu, how does a conflict that's so far away really change the price of fuel, food, the price of fuel and food here in Nigeria? This is Anthony sending that one in. Okay, so a lot of people do not seem to understand while a war that is fought between the US and Iran is having a rippling effect right here in Nigeria and so many other countries. Dr. Obiora, maybe you need to break this down for the likes of Anthony and others.
Victor, that was exactly the reason why I decided I would build that background, first of all. Because if anybody doesn't understand that the world is interconnected as far as trade is concerned, that's why they call it a global village. We are so close and yet so far.
Right.
So the reason is that there is hardly any manufacturing company in Nigeria that doesn't have one raw material, one spare, or one component that they import from somewhere else around the world.
Okay.
This war is happening in a critical maritime zone where most of the vessels will pass one way or the other. So the fact that you are far from the place, yes, the missiles are not dropping, but the fact is that the implications of ships being able to move, insurance increase, every other thing increase, at the end of the day, you have a higher price to pay. For the oil that he's talking about, the crude oil, if we say that the Strait of Hormuz, which is a major part for oil trade in the world, which takes about 20 to 30% of it, if that place is blocked, what else do you expect? It is definitely that the cost of fuel, what we are seeing now is even a joke.
Right.
Because as from what we discussed, a few ships are still passing. When it is blocked completely, only God can tell what happens thereafter.
Right. And we can also even lay more background to that, because even as we speak right now, the price of oil, the international price has risen. It even got as high as $106 per barrel on the international market. And we've seen countries having to adjust their premium model spirit sales, right? We've seen some countries, it has even risen as high as 40%, 50% in some countries. And that is the situation. But we have a call on the line. Hello there. Good morning.
Yeah, good morning.
All right. What's your name?
It's B calling from Agba.
Oh, regular B. How you doing?
I'm very good.
All right. Let's hear from you, B.
I'm just wondering that how come the global supply chain, why is it so fragile that, a conflict in faraway Iran is causing so much chaos? Why is it so fragile?
Okay, that's what Dr. Obiora has been explaining, that there's nothing that is done and no nation is in isolation. Once you have maritime routes that cut across all these countries, as long as you import, then definitely anything that is happening in a very vital area that transports goods is likely going to have an effect on you. So if that route is blocked temporarily, or as the case may be, it has been blocked for almost a month now, there's no way the world will not feel the ripple effects. And that's what Dr. Obiora has been explaining.
So also, I want to ask, the rising cost of fuel in Nigeria,
right?
Is it just basically because we as a country don't refine our own
Our own.
Is that why?
Okay, all right. Thank you so much for that question, B from Ogba. So, B is wondering if that rising cost is it because we do not have enough crude oil? We're not producing enough, Dr. Obiora?
Yeah, of course, we know we have a much challenge with refining our fuel. Now, it is refining, it is not production. And then again, we have a refinery that is functional, that's the Dangote refinery.
Right.
But if Dangote has to buy fuel, even from the Nigerian NNPC, and buy it at current price, what do you expect that will happen? Apart from that, we are aware that Dangote is also buying foreign crudes, apart from Nigeria's own.
Very correct.
So the consequences is that's what we are seeing.
That's very correct, V. So what is happening right now is that the crude which is needed by Dangote refineries to refine into PMS and other forms that we use, Nigeria supplies him only 30%. So he has to import 70% of that, and he has to do that on international price. So if he's buying it at $104 or $106 per barrel, it's going to affect the way that he will also sell. And that's the reason why you see that the price of premium spirit is also high. But I can tell you, it's far, far lower than what we have in some other countries. South Africa has adjusted theirs over 30% in the past 1 week. We have other countries, even in the Middle East, also being affected as well. But Dr. Obiora Amadu, is there any end in sight as it relates to this rising cost that we're seeing across the world? Is there any end in sight?
I wish we had a crystal ball to check. But what I would like to talk about is what should global supply chain managers be doing?
Talk to us. What should they be doing?
Let us forget about when it will end, because we do not know.
Okay.
Because both parties are maintaining very strong positions, and it is very difficult to determine when the war can end in such a situation.
Right.
So I want to tell the global supply chain managers the first thing that they have to do is to activate supply chain risk monitoring.
Okay.
I did mention it along the line. If you have high risk monitoring with a very, very intelligent system that is able to pick up information, because I can tell you, some people had sensitive systems that picked up the fact that what is happening now will happen, probably 2 months or thereabout before it happened.
Okay.
So such people will not suffer the way everybody else is suffering. The second thing they must do is to diversify sourcing locations and reduce geographic concentration. What that means is that if there is something that you are currently sourcing in Europe, in Middle East, or in China, can you look around Africa? Is there any place you can source the place so that when you have these disruptions, those who are sourcing their raw materials from around Africa or locally in Nigeria will not feel the impact of this like those who are importing from outside.
Okay.
Then, of course, shipping routes. You don't own ships. You can't decide shipping routes. But the fact is that your system should be able to identify routes that are less prone to risk.
Right. Okay.
So that way you will get out of trouble. Then if you have a very strong relationship with your suppliers and they trust you, if your system does not pick up the fact that something is about to happen, theirs may. And because of your relationship with them, they will try and do something to make sure they beef up your supply so that you do not fall victim to that. So among other things that they should do, but this will help the global supply chain managers survive this very particular global crisis.
Right. All right. There's a message here. It says, sir, are international shipping routes being changed because of this war now? Collins is sending this one from Oshodi. Yes, Collins. I think Dr. Obiora mentioned this earlier on. You can navigate through other routes, but of course that is much more expensive and it's a longer route indeed. And that's going to add to shipping costs as well. This one says, good morning, Mr. Victor and Dr. Obiora. I keep seeing news about fertilizer shortages. How is that linked to this conflict? Shehu Ibrahim is sending this one in. Okay, well, let me allow Dr. Obiora to answer that one. But I know fertilizers are also shipped through that route, the Strait of Hormuz. So if it's blocked as well, that's the resultant effect. Dr. Obiora?
Victor, you just answered it. The fact is that the chemicals are involved in all that, and then shipments take place through the same routes. So whatever happens to other things that pass through, or raw materials that pass through that route, will also happen to fertilizer. So that is given.
All right, then. So for us, is there anything that we can gain from this U.S.-Iran war, Dr. Obiora?
You mean us as Nigeria?
Yes.
Yeah, I think the issue is that the consequences is becoming very heavy on the common man. So we have to be able to, as a country, we need to come up with some strategies to mitigate what is going on.
Right, because I've not heard anything.
What Nigeria faces.
Yeah, I've not heard anything from the federal government. I mean, in other countries, they're giving advisory on how they can conserve energy, perhaps manage their energy usage. Some have decided to bring in subsidies and all of that. We're not hearing anything from the federal government of Nigeria.
Victor, so many nations have gone beyond advisory and look at other ways. We know we have global oil disruptions. What happens to it is that transport costs will rise, business costs will also go up. So we know all this, but what I'm saying is that individual companies, because someone says that every company in Nigeria is a local government, because you dig your water, you build your road, you supply your light. So we cannot be looking forward to anything right now. We haven't had anything today, 36 days, like you said,
right
after the war began. So what it means is that individual companies need to go into themselves and then find solutions and how they will survive from these very particular high rising landing costs, delays that are coming from rerouted goods, everything. So it calls for one thing. Because there's something that we are currently doing, which has to do with developing a war room supply chain within every organization.
Okay.
Only war room supply chains can survive this type of pressure.
And what does that mean?
The war room is a situation where there are people who are trying. There's one command. There's a single command in the organization that gives instruction when disruptions happen. Everything is prepared. You prepare before the disruption happens rather than react when the disruption happens. So what it means is that we're training supply chain managers to be war ready. It's no longer about only resilience. It's no longer enough alone. You have to bring in other things. You put them through pressure, disruptions, uncertainties, and then ability to take a decision, because so many companies collapse as soon as disruptions arise. So the war room situation is what makes it possible for companies to be able to withstand
all right.
this.
Okay, then
I will let you know. I'll give you more details about this.
All right, then this one says, please, how long does it take for a conflict like this to hit markets and logistics worldwide? Uche from Festac. Well, it doesn't take any time, really, Uche. The moment the war started, we started seeing the impact on prices across the world, especially the one that relates to energy. 08099120777. As we round off the program this morning, Dr. Obiora Madu, what do you think we should be doing next? Nigeria's benefit is that the high cost of oil on the international front is very beneficial to us, right? We are making money from it. But what can the government do to translate that to the common man as we round off?
I think, can we supply crude to Dangote in Naira?
Okay.
And having produced it, you will see fuel price drop automatically. So it's they are making, when government is making money from anything, it is difficult to talk them out of it. They are making money from the high oil prices, but the people are suffering it. So they need to do something, particularly this energy cost increases every other thing. Transport, goods are going to be moved to the market, everything rises.
Right.
So can we sit down with Dangote, give him crude, not allow him to go and buy crude at the current global price and expect to have a cheaper fuel prices? It will not work like that.
Right. Okay. All right. We'll leave it at that for now. Dr. Obiora Madu, thank you so much for connecting with us on the program this morning. We do appreciate you.
Thank you, Victor. Thank you. My pleasure.
All right, then. So we're reflecting a bit this morning. We've been looking at the US-Iran war and the global ripple effects on supply chains and logistics. And Dr. Ubi Ramadu, who is the Encyclopedia of Supply Chain Management. He's an expert consultant as well, and the Director General of African Center for Supply Chain, has been taking us on this excursion. We have to go. The program has been produced by Mike James. I say big thank you to Rebecca Adamu, who's Assistant Director of Public Relations for the Nigerian Shippers Council. In the studios, Abigail Jenny has been here, and maximum shout out going out to Remy Aluko of our social media unit. Our executive producer is Tayo Akonle. My name is Victor Terry. Connect with the Shippers Council on all their platforms at NG Shippers, at NG Shippers. I'm out. Still very much within. Bye. From